Brothers in Tech is a weekly podcast focused on personal and home technology, helping provide you, our fellow brothers and sisters in tech, with some information, assistance, and recommendations. Hello, everyone, and welcome to Brothers in Tech here on the Mesh.tv podcast network. My name is Alan Jackson. Off to my right, if you're so privileged enough to be watching us on video, you will see Brian Jackson, my actual brother in tech.
That's the not privileged part, seeing right. Me. But
if you're listening on audio, you will not hear any difference. We are both in the same channel. We haven't done the whole stereo mixing side of things, so you're just going to hear us both in the same channel, I believe. Nothing too exciting there. It is Brian Jackson there. So, Brian, this is our once a week get together to talk about technology. But before we do, everything going okay with you? Anything new of interest?
New? No, not really. I do have some tech to share, which we'll talk about here in a little bit. It's kind of been a nice tech week. Unfortunately, much of that tech is out of necessity and not because of pure desire. So that's a little bit of a bummer.
We want to hear about that in all its glory, all the pros and the cons here in a little bit. We'll get to that in just a minute. Brian can talk about some of the new technology he's been introducing, and we can discuss it a little bit. This is Brothers in Tech. This is a show where Brian and I, actual brothers, get together every week and we talk technology. We talk personal, home, family technology, technology you can use every day. And every time we get together, we either have a topic or two we like to dig into, maybe a new software product we'd like to explore. We've been going through email programs for the last several weeks in a row. It is nuts. But Brian, I'll just tell you in a 30-second recap here.
Oh God, no, no. Are you gonna jump in and take over with email again?
This is just a coda to last week's episode.
Okay. All right.
I recommended. I ended up using the email program Missive. Yep. Which granted does cost a fair amount per month, but I'm happy to be spending that money. I am still extremely happy with this email program. I have been very happy with the outcomes. I enjoy using my email program right now. So yes, I'm just here to say I'm still on board. 1 week.
Wow. That's good. That's good. I might have to ask you this every week and see at what point anything changes, but
yeah. There may be
I can tell you that I am not using Missive myself, and mainly because of the iOS, which we briefly went into. But
found the iOS not to your liking.
Not enough. Yeah, there was a couple of things that didn't work, and that led me not to give it a shot. But when I did test out the desktop, it was nice. Yeah. A lot of opportunities there. So I'm glad you found one. I'm glad that you're in a good space right now. So.
I am in a very good space on email. So I like to believe we're not going to be addressing email as much the next several weeks. So let's move on to other topics. And but if we need to do a check-in on my email program every week, that's fine. Just to see if anything's changed.
Sounds good.
Brian, just as much as us talking about technology in general, we like exploring new technologies. And you have an opportunity this week where you have two new products or new to you products that you're going to be kind of doing a little bit of unboxing, a little bit of exploring with us and talking about new technologies for us. So let's get into the first one. I know we're going to get into, you got a Samsung phone, an S23 phone. We're going to get to that a little bit later in the show. That is something where we're going to talk a little bit about Samsung and the Android operating system compared to iOS. You being a long-term iOS person with iPhones and such, I want to hear your thoughts and feedback initially after using a new Galaxy phone. We'll get to that in a little bit, but you have another technology that you just kind of bought into that we can talk about a little bit. That is Airtags. So let's talk
That's
Airtags
right.
a little bit. What brought you to get Airtags involved in your life and why? And let's remind everybody what they are in case they're not familiar with it.
Yeah, so Airtags are Apple's version of kind of a an item finder, a location device where, you know, anyone who's had a tile in the past, which was kind of the initial leaders in this market, they were the little device that you could put on keys, or you could put on a backpack or a briefcase, and then if you were to misplace them, they would have the ability to be able to kind of either respond to you if you're very close by, or allow you to track them and see where they were last seen. So Airtags are Apple's version of this, and I know most people have heard of them and maybe even have used them. This is my first time ever even holding one. And so I decided to move to Airtags. Alan, you and I talked about how I lost my keys a few weeks ago. I had a tile on those keys, thought I was doing the right thing, and turns out that one, the tile, I think, was running out of battery. So even if I would have found it, it seems like it being used as a lost device probably wore out the rest of whatever battery was there. And then the other tile has kind of come a little loose in the tooth, right? Where, you know, if no one has a tile app on their phone close to wherever that tile is, then you're not going to get access to that detailed information. So
can I just pause you for a second and make sure everybody's kind of understanding what we're talking about here? With the tile, and again, all these trackers kind of work in a very similar fashion. But with tile, which was kind of the mainstay, that's the one that everybody kind of knew. That was the device you hook to your keys, you hook to your backpack, whatever it is you want to keep track of.
Right.
So basically, it is pinging a signal on a regular basis. And that's why you're able to go to your iPhone and pull up the Tile app and see exactly where that device is.
Yeah.
But for it to ping and share a location, it has to be near other devices on the Tile network, correct?
Yeah. So this is what's kind of beautiful about this technology is they're taking advantage of the fact that people have phones, and those phones can all share information with one another. Right now, a lot of people think, "Oh my gosh, I don't want my phone being tapped into by a network to share about somebody else's stuff." But this all happens behind the scene. It all happens as an encrypted network. So given that I have a Tile and I have the Tile app on my phone, that Tile app is constantly kind of waiting to see if it comes in contact with anyone else that has a Tile. Now, that doesn't mean I can pull up my phone and see who else around me has a Tile. But if I have permissions on a particular Tile, then I can gain access to it. But if someone else, let's say that I'm at the airport and I lose my bag, someone picks up my bag and takes it to the other side of the airport, as long as in the general location of that Tile where my bag is, if someone else has a phone that has the Tile app on it, it allows me to kind of triangulate to figure out where that object is. But the big key factor here is that you have to have the Tile app, or someone has to have the Tile app. So if you're out in a location where no one's using a Tile and no one has the Tile application on their phone, you're kind of out of luck, right? And it's going to tell you, here's where we last saw it. And that last seen information may be, you know, a completely different place, especially if it was being driven away, or if it was, you know, something that's out in a non-populated area. So that's always kind of been the challenge, is that these don't have their own Wi-Fi signal. So they're not tapping into Wi-Fi. They're not tapping into a cell network, right, which would be great, obviously, if they each could ping a cell network, because then you could figure out where they were at any time, right? But of course, that would take a lot of battery. That would take, you know, a cell service, which is probably another fee. So Tile started to, I think, become less and less useful because fewer and fewer people had the Tile app, especially after AirTags came out. When Apple announced that, hey, we've got our own version of this, and guess what? Ours now works on any iPhone. So if you come in contact with an iPhone, regardless of whether it has a Tile app or anything like that, it now has the ability to let you know that, hey, by the way, we just saw it, and it was generally in this location. It's not going to give you any information about the person that has the iPhone, but it's going to say, we recently saw that that device in this general location.
Thinking about in general, just how many devices out there are iOS devices,
Yep.
iPhones, iPads. It is, even if you, in some areas, it's not a majority of the mobile devices, it is a very, very high significant portion of them. The chance of you being within Bluetooth or near field connection with another iOS device is pretty high in most places. So right away, you start to see where the real difference is between a tile type architecture and the Airtags with the iOS connectivity. So
Right,
yeah.
right. There's a definite benefit to the iOS version here, the AirTags, right? So I would say right off the bat, if you're looking for something in which you feel like you want the best opportunity to be able to find it later, obviously you want the thing that has the greatest opportunity to connect with something else when it's out in the wild. And I feel like AirTags probably has a better opportunity to do that because there are more iPhones than any phone with a tile app on it. So I went with the AirTags as a replacement for my tile, and we've kind of done a switch over. I bought a pack of 4. They do come in singles as well as a pack of 4. I think a pack of 2 and a pack of 4. They're pretty popular right now. I ended up just taking a look at Best Buy the other day, and they were completely gone. I did order mine, which they came fairly quickly. But I do think it's something that people are recognizing is probably a good use of money for people that might be losing things. So, I have one on my keychain now. My wife has one on her keychain. We're planning on putting one on our dog. And, just in case she were to dart off, at least we have like a little bit of confidence we might be able to find her. And then I'm tempted to even put one in my car, just because someone steals your car and it doesn't really matter if you still have your keys if the car goes somewhere else. So, thinking about trying to put them in a number of different places. So,
Yeah.
So they are $29 a piece, which is a little
$29.
pricey, but not
Yeah, a little
crazy.
bit.
Yeah,
I would
not
love it if
crazy.
these were $15 or
Yeah,
so.
yeah,
$15, I feel like that's where they need to be. But this is the Apple premium tax we pay on top of everything. So
right.
$29 sounds like an Apple price for something like this. You can get a set of 3 or 4 of them for
You can get a set of
$99.
4. Yeah, I got a set of 4. I think for 89. I think there was a discount
Okay.
on them, and I believe I may have even ordered through Amazon. But
Yeah.
yeah, so I a little bit cheaper to go for a pack of 4. I will say, Alan, there's a number of these that are for sale on like Marketplace where people say, "Hey, I bought them, but I realize I don't really need them." I get a little nervous about that,
Yeah.
because I also think that even if it's in the package, I still don't know how possible it might have been for someone to use these nefariously, and given how small they are and what they potentially could do. But yeah, but I'm so far I'm pretty happy with it. I thought I have 2 of them that I haven't even unpackaged yet, so I thought maybe I would pull one out, set it up, let you see that process, because it's
Yeah, let's do
pretty
that.
simple, pretty easy to do.
Here, I'll
So
zoom in on the window a little bit here. Actually, I'll tell you
okay,
what I'll do is I will move. Nope. I'm gonna move you
cool.
over. There you go. You get the big window. So now I can see you.
Nice. Okay, well, I've got a couple of ways I could do this. Let's see. Let me just do this. Disconnect that. Okay, so first of all, here's an AirTag, right? It comes out of the package. It's wrapped in plastic, right? I will back up a little bit. Okay, this came in a package that had 4 of them. You can see I still have one left remaining to go. Now, I got a couple of cons that I'm going to give as I go through this. One, I mean, these are set up so that they're not ready for a keychain. I mean, you have to buy a keychain. They don't have hooks on them. They don't have a loop on them.
They are truly
you can connect.
freestanding little dials. I mean, really, they're made for
Freestanding little
either.
dots. Yep.
Yeah.
Yep. So they're wrapped in plastic, and then the plastic is kind of stuck into the battery. So there is a battery in it that is obviously not working yet because you got to pull the plastic tab out of it. What else? I mean, it's a fairly slick looking. The back of it looks very similar. See, there's the back. You're not going to see it.
Yeah.
You're not going to see it. The back of it's
Not really.
silver. It's got a little apple on it, right?
Mhm.
Looks very similar to the back of an Apple Watch. Okay.
Yeah.
So what I'm going to do, Alan, I will. All right, got my phone here, and I'm going to first of all go ahead and take the plastic off of this, and you'll see that I'm going to be pulling the tab out. So once you pull the tab out, I heard a little noise there. That means it's ready to go. And we're supposed to, I'm going to put this here. There you go.
There it goes.
You can see that you're not going to be able to see it because of the reflection. But yeah, the bottom came up and said connect, right? It's asking me if I want to connect. Okay. Let's see. Ellen, I wonder, can I switch to a screen now? Maybe that would be a little easier. Let's see if that's going to work. All right, let's try this.
This is excellent audio podcast material right here.
Everybody is going to love it, right? Okay, so this is what came up. Oh,
hold on.
There you go.
I'm not really sure why I'm gone, but if you're okay with that.
Well, I think it's. I mean, I think it's great. I think everybody's okay with that.
I'm here in spirit. You can't see it.
It's probably because you made me full screen, right? You made me big earlier, but okay. So as you can see, it comes up and says, "Hey, we notice an AirTag, and it is proximity based." So I remember when I first tried one of them, nothing happened. You have to just go and get it very close to the phone, and it will recognize. So if I click connect, it's asking me to name the AirTag, tell it what it is that you're using: backpack, bike, handbag, so on. Or you can go down to a custom name and tell it what this is. So if I said this was for my dog, so Stella, click continue. It also allows you to put an emoji, which I think really only comes up if you are, seeing it in a list of different things. So I'm going to see if I have anything here where that's a dog. Yep. Okay. So I chose an emoji, click continue, and then you'll see that it has to be linked to a particular Apple ID. This is something I'm going to go over in just a minute. It gives a bit of a kind of agreement that you have to say, yes, I understand. And then it is allowing me to set this up for Stella, and it's going to set it up within my, there we go. Beeps at me, and it's setting up under my Apple ID. And then you can see that it's giving you some options, and I'm going to say done. So at this point, I'm going to go into the Find My application, and you'll see now under items, I have a second one. So BJ's Keys is my first one that I'd set up before, and then Stella. And then you can see on the map there that they are both right here with me. So pretty slick, pretty easy. And the moment you connect it, it is now listed, if you see here at the bottom of the screen, under the items. Another thing that I will bring up as a potential issue. But so yeah, if I click on that particular AirTag, so I'm clicking on Stella here, it gives me the option to play a sound. So let's just say that I can't find it in my house. These are my keys, for example. I could click and tell it I want to play a sound, and you'll hear the beep coming from the AirTag, which means great, looks like you found it. And you can also do notifications and say, this particular thing, I want to be notified anytime I leave it behind, which I'm not going to have happening here. And then there's even an option to do this loss mode. And I think the loss mode is that, please let me know whenever it is found, or even kind of notify me quickly so that I can try to figure out where it is. So, Alan, I can't see you. Can you hear me? Yeah,
Yes.
things were great there for a minute, and I was like, "Whoa, wait a minute, is he still
No,
there?"
I can totally hear you. Let me see. Okay, there we are. Yeah,
Okay.
so I'm here. Yeah, I mean, super
So,
easy.
questions from you,
Super
Alan? Because
straightforward.
you said you haven't done this before.
No, well, other than I've bought some AirTags for my kids that they have used for some things, but I have not purchased any for myself. And I still have a tile on my key ring, but
Yep.
after your car incident has caused me to now kind of escalate my thinking into getting something different for tracking car keys.
Yeah.
And the other things I need to be tracking, honestly, I've got a silicone case for my Apple TV remote that actually has a hole in the back meant for an AirTag.
Oh, nice. Okay.
Yeah, it actually, you pop an AirTag in the back of it, and that is now what you can use to track your Apple TV remote, which, believe it or not, I'm not worried about my Apple TV like being in some other part of the city. I just need to find it in my freaking living room, and to know that I can actually play the sound and do all those things is nice. So no, I'm definitely on the verge of jumping into the AirTag world.
Good. Well, I
think it'd be good.
I think it's a good move. Now, let me give you my criticism of the AirTags.
Yeah,
right.
like
Obviously, the criticism of the tile was obviously that it just didn't seem like it was going to be as precise to be able to find it. There's probably going to be fairly large gaps because of fewer people having tiles. But here are my problems with the AirTags. For one, I'm very happy to know that you can replace the battery. So these are the kind of the watch coin batteries that are in them. I think the 1632 battery. So you can replace the battery, and it's supposed to last, maybe a year, and then you replace it to be able to get more. I think that's great. But man, what a missed opportunity, Ellen. This thing is exactly the same on the back as a Apple Watch. Why this can't just snap onto an Apple Watch charger and recharge? And I'm sure that's to the design, right? So the next version of these, which probably is going to look the exact same, will be rechargeable. And it would be, I think personally, so much nicer. It could notify you, hey, listen, you've got 20% left. Go throw it on your charger. Sits in that magnet charger, because the back of it is exactly the same.
What is the protocol if your battery is running low on these things? Like you need to replace the battery, can you do that?
You can, yes. So it's a replaceable battery, right? It's one of the coin batteries. I haven't tried to open it yet, but I believe, I'm just looking real quick. On the back, it says Bluetooth, LE, ultra wideband, AirTag, designed by Apple. Well, I guess it doesn't tell me, but I think it's the 1632 battery. You're supposed to be able to swap these out. Okay. So it's replaceable battery, which is great. But why it couldn't have been a rechargeable battery so that we don't have to get a brand new battery every time, I don't know. I'm sure that's coming soon.
That would be
and
nice.
maybe part of that is that batteries can drain a little bit quicker over time, and maybe they're not really comfortable with the long-term use of them. But so that was a little disappointing. The other piece that I think was a bit annoying, and Alan, it's probably something important for you to note, you cannot share AirTags with someone else. So for example, the one I just put on there for my dog, only I am going to see it in my Find My application.
So like your spouse couldn't see it or anything.
You cannot share it with someone else. So which a tile you could say, listen, this is both, we have the same tile account. And so, my wife and I could both see where those keys were. This is not the case. Now, the way you can kind of get around that is, of course, you got to assume one of you is going to have your phone, and whenever you get a notification, the other one could be notified. And then I think you can, work through a system like that. But that was a bit disappointing, right? It's great with keys. right? I mean, I only need to know about my keys. She only needs to know about her keys. But when it comes to having an item like this where both of us care about it, I really do wish it could have been shared. And it seems like it's super easy to do, right? I'm already
I don't think
having,
so.
I'm already in a family plan with her,
Yeah.
so I can share everything else with her. I can share my location. Why I can't click on it and say share this location with,
Yeah.
this person? Makes
I don't
no sense.
understand why under a family account you can't turn on the option to share with other members of the family.
Yeah, it doesn't
That
make
would
much
seem pretty
sense.
straightforward to me. So yeah.
Now, I did read an article that said, that's a fairly easy software update. So
Mhm.
wouldn't be surprised if that comes. Maybe right now they're still trying to figure out exactly how people are using it. There was a concern initially that people would take these and track other people. Someone walks
Yeah.
by and drops it in your backpack. That's one thing I think is a really cool piece that Apple has done. And let me see if it comes up. I'm trying to remember what the options were, but so my understanding is that, Alan, if I were to, if you were walking by and I were to drop my AirTag into your backpack,
Mhm.
that you moving around with an iPhone, if you have an iPhone and you're moving around and all of a sudden there's an AirTag close to you that's following you, it will actually notify you. Hey, by the way, there's an AirTag that's following you that isn't yours. We wanted you to know about it, which is a
Yeah.
really cool option, right? And I think that's fantastic. But why I can't go in and say, oh, no, but that's actually my kid, right? Go ahead and notify that they're part of my plan or something like that. So there's a problem.
It is a little challenging. Now, granted, I've sometimes seen random AirTags pop up on my phone saying, "Hey, there's an AirTag near you."
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, so I guess that kind of lends to the whole idea that it is going to notify you if there's one near you
Right.
instead of it being slipped in and you not seeing it um,
Yeah.
overtly. So that's good to know.
Yeah.
Good to know.
So I would say, to me, other than price, there's really three things that I am a little disappointed about. One, you're forced to get some other case. Like I bought several of these little cases where you can slide the Apple AirTag into them, a little neoprene case that can go on your
Yeah.
keychain. You have to buy something else, right? Whereas the Tiles always had a little hook on the side, so at least you could put it directly on your keys and not have to worry about it. I'm disappointed that, given the design, it isn't automatically just chargeable on a watch charging cable, because it just seems like it's made for it. And then also the idea of not being able to share it with someone is really disappointing. And so, Alan, if you look back at the Find My application, the piece about this that kind of disappoints me is that there are these two sections. There's devices and items. Items are where you have AirTags, and devices are your things like your phone and your computer and all that. To me, you should be able to decide which one's which. It's like, what is something that I want to share with my family? Just slide it over to maybe a device, and items or something that are just mine, or maybe you have private versus shared.
Yeah.
Because it seems like that's the real distinctive factor here, is that they're suggesting that these items are things that are yours and only yours,
Yeah.
and they are privately tracked items, which I don't think is necessarily the best.
Well,
So
of the three things you mentioned, as far as things you'd love to see or things you feel like are weaknesses right now, one of them, the physical construct of the actual disc itself, being something that could go on an Apple Watch charger, that to me sounds like a future generation of AirTags capability.
yeah, for sure.
The having it be something you can put into a key ring or having some way of attaching it, that will never happen. They're going to constantly want you to buy
Right.
the ring holsters or other like sleeves for it to go in. The last piece of the puzzle about being able to share it with others, that to me hopefully that's a next software version update or a future software update version capability, because
That's
that'll
my
be
hope.
pretty easy to roll out. So
Yep.
that's the biggest hang up for me. Like I already bought into the idea that if I go this route, I'm going to have to pay some more money for a keychain holder or some other thing to hold it in. So be it. And then the charging would be nice, but I think I could probably work around that for now. So that sharing thing is the biggest issue for me, or sharing it with other people. Yeah. If I put one on our dog, or cat or whatever, I mean, I don't want it to just be me that could track it. I need other people to be able to track it as well. So that is a challenge right now for sure.
Yeah. Yeah. So that piece I'm hopeful will change and improve. And but I see myself getting more of these. I see putting one in each of our cars. I see putting one on a camera bag, just like I did with a lot of the tiles. Just because, one, if they're all in the same location on my phone, the place where I can go and see where my phone is, where my wife is, where my keys are, everything is there, is just a really slick ecosystem. So so I've bought in, and I'm gonna stick with it. So
Brian is all in on AirTags.
I'm all in so far.
Probably be pretty soon here. I'm already eyeing a 4-pack myself, and I've already got figured out where I would put them here in my household. So
yeah, all right.
Ceremoniously get rid of the tile and move it off the keychain and put the Apple AirTag on. All right. Well, thanks for the unboxing. Thanks for the walking through of that and kind of the pros and cons. It's good to know. Now, are there any other major competitors right now to Apple's AirTags outside of tile?
I don't think so. Not that I know. Yeah.
Yeah. So that says a lot too. If people felt like this was a real weak market for Apple, they would jump right in and have their own products. But the fact that everybody's kind of staying away from this makes me think that Apple's kind of got this down pat. They've got this market figured out. So yeah.
And I think AirTags can work with Android devices. The quick read I did on it is that there is a connection that can be made there, but it's not as strong as the connection between an iPhone user, or at least the network itself. But so I think it is possible to be able to use that, though.
Well, Brian,
that kind of leads us to our next.
I was going to say, you should be an expert in this field, because you, speaking of Android and non-Apple devices, my understanding is you've been using a Samsung S23 for what, the past week?
About a week. Yeah. About a week.
Now, Brian, just you and I, self-admittedly, we are Apple users. We both have iPhones, iPads, Apple Watches, MacBook Pros. I mean, we are in this world.
Yep.
So
we're bought in.
I don't know about you, Brian, but when somebody approaches me and wants to talk about, Android, it is it's tough for me, because part of me, my initial reaction is I just want to champion iOS, but I also feel like I don't want to turn a blind eye to what the other side's doing, because I do hear some really interesting things that they're doing in the phone market from time to time. But without having two phones side by side and be able to really kind of evaluate and compare, it's tough to know. You, however, are in a position where you did acquire a Galaxy S23 phone for other purposes. To talk us through why you've got one, and then let's talk about some initial feedback and reactions on that.
Yeah. Well, the why is some research development that I've been doing, and it's funny working with a tech company that is developing applications and technology. I'm one of the only iPhone people within this small tech company, mainly because they realize that Android is much more open for individuals to develop for. It's easier to develop for applications to get it on Android devices. You have more opportunities to be able to go and code for those devices. So we chose to kind of develop our new products on an Android device. So given that, we had to do testing. And so we wanted to get the latest and greatest on the Android line of phones to try to see what was the speed and performance capabilities that they would allow some new technology or some new applications to do. So I've gotten a chance to play, as you said, with an S23. And for those that don't know, the new 23s, the S23s, that line of Samsung Galaxy is, as of the recording of this podcast, is kind of the latest and greatest from Samsung. And there are three levels. There's kind of the Samsung, or the S23, I think S23 Plus and maybe the S23 Ultra, something like that. So this is just a standard S23. So it's very similar to the iPhone lines in which they have the larger models, but this is kind of that entry phone. And I will tell you, it's pretty nice, Alan. It's something that has been fairly easy to use, and I've been fairly impressed. So I thought I'd do a little bit of a side-by-side for you, or a little tour for you, Alan,
Okay.
just to tell you some things like, initial impressions of the device itself. So I'm going to share my screen, which is,
Okay.
we're going to use the camera on my current phone so that we can take a look at the S23. All right.
Good.
So this is the Samsung. First off, I'll say the size is almost identical to the phone that I have. So I have an I have an iPhone 13, which I believe is the same size as the iPhone 14. So the regular, not the Pro or any of that. And this is, I think, the exact same size. So I think it's a 6.1 screen. You'll notice even the width is this has a case on it. By the way, I put a plastic case on it, but weight is the same. Look is the same. If I had this down on the just on the table, you walked up to it, you would not know that it was an Android or an iOS device. Right? They seem to look identical. The only things that I can tell you, I'm going to unplug this for a second. Only things that I can tell you initially from the look of it that are different. Obviously, the layout of the cameras is a little different than any of the iOS devices. I think the iOS devices, when they have 3, there are 2 next to each other and 1 above, or the 4. Alan, they've got the volume and power both on the same side, as opposed to the iOS. So there's nothing on the other side. And then the other piece that's a little different is, of course, they are USB-C. Yeah. So a USB-C connection, which is super slick. I prefer that.
I would
jealous
desperately want that for an iPhone.
Yep. Let me give you the negative. This is obviously the first time I've gotten a phone in a little while. There was no cable with this phone, no charging brick or no cable that came with it.
Wow. Okay.
So when I opened it up, it literally was just the phone and that's it, which was kind of a bummer for me because I don't have that many USB-C cables laying around. But I guess packaging wise, it's a whole lot easier. It was a very slick box, or a small box, there was nothing else that could have fit in there. So that was a bit of a bummer, but also understandable, not trying to waste packaging. So let's see what else. So as I said, weight, the feel of it feels really, really similar. Okay. I could be using this and not feel much different at all from my phone.
Sure.
I don't have a lot of experience with Android. Okay. But, they're not too far off in terms of the icons and the fact that you have a tray down here that you can include a number of different icons. You can see that I can drag them over just like you would with iOS to be able to have a little different when I'm using it. It took me a little getting used to that. This is kind of a tray as almost like a home screen, whereas if you flick up, this is where you get to see all of your apps. And so that's just a rotation that can happen. Sorry, rotating through
the 5
home screen
buttons. Brian, I'm sorry, the 5 buttons on the bottom, those are customizable, correct?
Correct. Yep.
Okay.
Yep. So you can pull those out, put those wherever you want.
Yeah.
So you kind of have multiple tray areas here as your home page, and then you also have the actual list. So this is almost like, on iOS sliding over to the app library, right, and seeing all of them. But it's much easier to get to.
Yeah, is 5 the maximum number you can have down there in that bottom tray?
That's a good question. Let's see. I think so. In the bottom tray, yes.
Yeah, 5.
Yeah, but realize but realize I don't know. I mean, so you can have multiple pages here, just like iOS. Okay, but I do like the fact that I can get to all of the applications quicker. So it's kind of like you have three levels. You have what's in the tray, what's on the home flippable screens, and then what's in kind of the big folder of everything, right?
Okay.
So I do like that. That
Yeah,
seems to
sure.
be easy for me to do. Obviously, it's got widgets. These are things that, just like in iOS, you can click on and change. Say, I get rid of that widget, change it for something else. So, generally that's similar, right? I think someone that's going from iOS to Android would easily be able to figure some of that out, be able to navigate around pretty well. The one part that takes a little getting used to, and I'm trying to decide whether I like it or not like it, is there's always the navigation at the bottom. So if you see the three items at the bottom, right? The left is the little sideways hamburger, and then the middle being the kind of like your home, which takes you back to this particular screen, and then the left button there is a back button. So now the reason I like this, Alan, or I've enjoyed using it, is I always know one-handed my thumb can reach everything that I need to do to get back to this place. Whereas iOS sometimes put those up in the top left to go back a screen. You swipe a lot with iOS to go back screens, and this just it's kind of nice to always have the back, right? It's kind of the escape to go back one level. As I said, that center button, if I was anywhere else, takes me back to this home. The three lines, Alan, is the app switcher. Okay, so if you here on app switcher, you can flick away your applications just like you would in any other or in iOS, right? So instead of swiping up from the bottom like iOS has done, app switcher allows you to flick away those applications as well. Notice something looks really similar. This is the camera app. It looks really, really similar to iOS. So I don't think anybody would have trouble moving from one to the other. The same slider down here. There's a way to go straight to look at the images. And again, this is where I think it's kind of nice that when you jump into something and you realize you made a mistake, it's always that back arrow which takes you where you were before. iOS isn't always there, right? Sometimes you got to swipe, or you have to go top left. You have to realize, do I need to go back home and do it all over again? So I do think that was pretty slick, but pretty easy to feel at home with this if you're an iOS user as well. I did notice that this particular phone, I just looked up some of the specs. It's got, I think, a better zoom on it, built-in zoom than the iOS does. Alan, I don't know if you've ever noticed this before, but this was something when I was trying to test these out. You know how at the bottom, and this is very similar to iOS, where you can just click on the type of zoom that you're wanting to do, right?
Yeah.
Zoom in. But I didn't realize that. Let's see, how did I get there? Well, I'm in it. Oh, it's because I'm in portrait. Here, right, it kind of creates a little slider, right? It makes it really easy to do the zoom. I didn't realize iOS does the exact same thing. So iOS, even though it's got the buttons, you click on those buttons and start sliding, and it does a little different. It's like a little compass dial, but you can start to kind of zoom in and zoom out easily without having to do the pinch. So I don't know if you have seen that before, but it was pretty helpful. Yeah. But as you can see, this does a really nice zoom job. So the camera, I think, is a little better on this Samsung S23. And from everything I've read, it seems to be a little bit better as well. Video, I think you can do video at 8K. 30 frames a second at 8K instead of the 4K, I think, is the max on the iPhone. But other than that, everything else, I will say the one thing I don't like, and this is probably part of, Alan, when you and I would be comparing, let's say, Apple and a PC, a Windows machine, right? You used to buy a Windows machine and it would come with all those other extra apps on it, because whatever company was selling you the Windows machine, the Dell, right? It has all the Dell stuff on it. Well, the same thing here. As you notice, there's several things here that are Samsung based, right? That come with it. And to me, I don't know, it feels a little quirky where you're thinking, okay, I'm in Android, but yet you want to, get me on a lot of Samsung applications. Whereas with iOS, of course, everything's the same. So there's the kind of pros and cons there. But everything else seems to be pretty slick. The performance is really good. I mean, it's very fast. I haven't done anything with messaging or even, I don't even think I've pulled up a web browser. Well, I guess I have, maybe Chrome. But everything is pretty slick, pretty responsive. So yeah, I think it's been an incredibly nice device. I don't know if it's selling me on changing to a Samsung or Android at any point, but
that was gonna be my
I like
question.
the fact that I could use it. Yeah.
That was gonna be my question: is do you feel like anything with its experience has kind of caused you to start thinking of potential options when it comes to your phones or mobile devices?
Well, what it has done is, again, that bottom navigation to me is really slick, is helpful. And of course, that's common across all the Android devices, where the iOS devices seem to be a little different depending on the form factor, whether it's a tablet, whether it's the phone, how you're navigating. I know, for example, my wife, she has an older iOS device and she despises using mine, which of course has no button on it. Hers still has a button. She loves using the button. So she gets mine. She's like, how am I supposed to switch apps? How am I supposed to do all this? Whereas the Android, it didn't matter if it had a button or not, right? You'd still know where the tray or the navigation tray is at the bottom. So to me, that's a positive, and maybe removal of some of the frustration. And I think other than that, of course, it's not something that I've really played with yet, but the ability, the openness of the Android platform to be able to add things when you know what you're doing. I think being able to add sideload applications, put on new applications pretty easily, not having to go through the store, there's a benefit there. Now, of course, there's a trade-off. And the trade-off is you don't get the security. You don't get, you're going to have more things that are potentially going to damage your phone. You don't get the integration that we just saw with like Airtags and all of that. All of that ecosystem is not going to be there. But I would say the phone itself, really pretty impressed with, and I would see, I would not be that disappointed if someone were to give me a phone and say, here you go, you're going to have to use this Android device from here on, if it was something like this, because I think the transition is pretty easy, given the form factor.
So playing out these scenarios, somebody comes to you, Brian, says, okay, I'm going to give you one phone, any specs on it you want. Doesn't matter the price tag. I'm just going to give you one phone. It's either a maxed out iPhone or it's a maxed out Galaxy phone. What do you go with?
The iPhone.
Okay, you still go with iPhone.
Well, and only because I have the other devices.
Yeah. It's connectivity, it's integration with other devices at this point. Okay.
Yeah, I mean performance. I think this particular phone is as good performance-wise. If you're just looking to do things like run applications and speed, I think the Bluetooth is updated from what even the iOS or the iPhone 14 has. So I think spec-wise that it potentially is a better phone. But I am nowhere near being in a position to get out of the ecosystem. And I think kind of having this with other computers that are in the Apple ecosystem, I think I would lose a great deal. So.
Well, it's just really interesting to me how these platform wars have evolved, because I think nowadays, if you're somebody buying a computer for your first time, desktop or laptop, and they ask me what operating system I would recommend, I just kind of say, well, look, what's your needs? What's going to work with the other devices you've got? Do you have any familiarity with any system over another? Because honestly, you can do everything on a Windows PC that you could do on a Mac. It really comes down to more of a personal preference of how you get them done. I feel like we're to a more of a parity point with iOS and Android than we've ever been. Where I do feel like anybody who chooses to go with an Android device is not losing anything.
No,
It is
no.
truly a personal preference of how you want to interact with your phone and what you're used to and what works with other devices you already own. Right?
Yeah. Yeah. And unless you said, what am I losing is maybe I'm losing the ability to be in an ecosystem where everything works well together,
Sure.
but you're not necessarily losing what that phone can do. I
Well,
mean,
if you
and
got
I
a
would say
yeah,
that's changed a bit, right? I mean,
yeah,
I have used Android phones in the past or Android tablets, and I felt the majority of those that I used felt cheap,
yeah,
felt like they didn't work very well, mainly because there's lots of different companies that can make that platform. So you get one that's an off brand, it's an Android. You're still in that same ecosystem there, but the device is nowhere near. Now, of course, Samsung, the S23, that is the top
that's
of the
the
line
top of
now.
the
So
line.
you are feeling like this is what the performance can do
Well,
in that ecosystem.
again, just like Windows PCs when they were set up with Windows and they licensed the Windows operating system out to all these PC makers. That's where I think people who have a sour opinion of Windows really started to come around, like started to build that sour opinion because you could be on a less than ideal PC by a
Right,
PC manufacturer, and
right,
Windows would be a horrible experience for you. You're on a high end Dell workstation with specs maxed out. Windows works great.
hmm
Mac, you never have to worry about that because Apple creates all their own hardware. So there's a certain standard
right,
performance level that's going to come about if you use an Apple device.
right. I mean,
So
they
I
won't
think,
let their device or
right.
their software go on other things, right? Yeah,
I think a lot of people who are sour on Android are facing the same situation. They've used a less than stellar hardware device
yep,
using Android and be like, oh, I don't like this. This isn't good. Where if they were using it on a more authorized, a higher tier quality product like Apple puts out for theirs, like the Galaxy you've got in your hand, I think
hmm
there'd be some different opinions out there. So,
I totally agree.
yeah,
Yep, I
I have
totally
no
agree.
problem recommending to somebody they get a Galaxy phone if they are running on a PC and running Windows, if they already have a tablet that's running
hmm
Android operating system, um, for any of those reasons, and they maybe want to save a little money, possibly. I know the phones is not really that much different, but when you get down to like your PCs and all the operating systems, it can operate like a lot cheaper.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah.
but I don't have any issue recommending a Galaxy phone or other Android device if that's a fit for somebody based on their needs.
Yep. No, it is a great phone. am really impressed with the build of it, impressed with how snappy it is, and the performance of it is fantastic. The operating system itself, I think, is good. I'm very happy with iOS. Like I said, if there was a way to tweak iOS to do a couple of those small things, like the swipe up to be able to see all your applications as opposed to having to swipe over 4 different screens to get to the search and all that sort of stuff. Or if there was a way to say, I'd like to have a navigation bar at the bottom. I don't have a button on my phone, but I wouldn't mind taking the bottom 10% to be like these 3 navigation buttons. Or even, switching out, Alan, one of your apps in your tray for a back button or for
Mm,
a something else. It's like it's always there, right? If it would
yeah,
be always there
that'd be
like
nice.
this is, one-handed, you can use one-handed. You don't have to worry about whether I'm trying to swipe and whether a swipe's going to work well, because I think swipes are, I know, oftentimes a little wonky. But other than that, I think if you are someone who is an iPhone user who maybe switched jobs to where they're giving you a PC and you're not in a Mac ecosystem as well anymore, I don't think you should be too worried about being able to switch over and learn the Android ecosystem. It's not too different. You just have to kind of, when you get into things like settings and all of that, it certainly feels different. But other than that, it's a pretty easy transition that I found.
The only thing for me, Brian, is I want that USB-C charger.
Oh God, yeah, I love that.
I mean, that's honestly the one thing that makes me say, I
Yeah,
like that other phone. It's not enough for me to move away from an iPhone, but man, that's the one thing I'd say, please pull copy and use. And hopefully in another version or two, we're going to see that USB-C cable, because I'm tired of carrying around 3 different types of cables depending on my Apple devices. And
Yeah.
USB-C has the chance to become a lot more ubiquitous if we can just get it on mobile phones. I think that's the key that we need right now. So,
I will add though that what I've learned to do, or what I have been doing, I have a wireless charger in my bedroom. I have a wireless charger on this desk, and I have a wireless charger at my work desk. So I don't have to worry about plugging. I rarely ever will plug a device in. Actually, I have a wireless connection on my phone, or in my car as well. I can put it up there on the dash. So to me, plugging a cable in is not something that I feel like I need to do very often. But given that I have a lot of other devices now that are starting to be USB-C when they come out of the box, it would be nice to just have a standard, right? And not have a full drawer over here. I was just looking a minute ago at a drawer that I have of tons of cables, and I have to pull each one out to say, is that a USB-C, or is that a USB-A, or is that a Lightning? Which one is this? And that's a bit frustrating. So hopefully they'll get their act together and be on the same page. But
hope so. All right. Well, that's the Galaxy S, or I'm sorry, the Samsung Galaxy S23.
S23. Yep.
Brian has reviewed. He's kind of taken one for the team here and kind of
beautiful
put himself through the paces of working with a Galaxy Samsung model phone. He's happy. He likes it. It's good. I think other than a couple misgivings, overall, it's a good experience. So that's good to know. I'm glad to know there's options out there for people, instead of feeling like, because you and I talk about Macs all the time and iPhones, it's good to let everybody know there are other options, and the other options right now are pretty good. There's some good other options out there for sure on that. So,
yep.
Right. Thanks, Brian.
Yeah. So Airtags and the S23 are both thumbs up for me.
Brian's got the thumbs up on both of them. So good to use. Yep. That is good to hear. I definitely think the AirTags are going to be near in my future. The Samsung phone, probably not, but I'm encouraged to hear what you've had to say about it. That makes me feel better about people making that decision going forward on those phones. So, but Brian, I'm sure people listening to us probably have some of their own opinions. Maybe they've used AirTags and are not excited or happy about those, or they've got some different opinions about the Galaxy phones that they want to share with us. How can they go about talking to us about those things?
Yeah, send us an email at info@themesh.tv. And we'd prefer you not tell us about any illegal activities you might be doing with these AirTags. But if you have some other creative uses, please do let us know. And if you happen to know of other ways to get around kind of the limitation of sharing information, with a spouse, we'd love to hear that as well, if you have some creative ways that you're doing that. But you can also go to our website at www.brothers-n-tech.com.
Perfect.
And Alan, I'm not going to say rush, but we're under an hour, and if we get out of here in about a minute and 45, we're under an hour. So,
well, that's a good time for me to roll into my 20-minute prepared
email. You're going to talk about email.
Email revisited. I have more opinions about email to share.
Yeah, that would be great. We haven't heard much about your email lately.
No, I'm actually going to make sure I'm watching the clock. I'm keeping it under an hour. I think this is good. I think we can do this. I'm just going to drag out my closing really slow, because I see we have a minute 15 left. Okay, we can do this. Well, Brian, this has been good. Thank you for both the unboxing and kind of talking through scenarios with both those new technologies. I think we're due for a Brothers in Tech Suggestions episode.
Oh, I agree. Yep.
I think that needs to be next week. I might have a couple things to share on the Brothers in Tech Suggestions episode.
Cool.
That's where Brian and I bring together a couple of suggestions of things we think are worth checking out. Could be a gadget, website, tool, app, whatever it may be. We're here to bring it to you to share. So I think we'll plan on doing that next week. That'll be fun. Our Brothers in Tech Suggestions episode for the month of March 2023. So with that, Brian, I see we have 30 seconds left to keep it under an hour. So should I go ahead and wrap it up? Are we done?
Oh, I think so, because you're probably going to stumble to press the button to actually get us out of here. So
Actually, I'm not.
Okay.
I've got it queued up right now.
Wow.
So
Okay.
we're going to close out the show right now. Thanks everybody for watching or listening. We'll talk to you next time. Take care.
Bye-bye.
Oh, and we're still here. All right. Bye-bye. See you, everybody.